Very exciting.
How are you? I see a lot of running medals behind you. Are those running medals?
Yes, they are running and triathlon. And I actually wanted to give a little shout out to Jordan Marrow. He was mentioned as one of the data literacy folks, and I did a bunch of like YouTube live things with him and Anna Ford last year about ultra running. So that kind of closes the circle of data and running and medals and things.
Yes, absolutely. You're giving me an idea. All my medals are in the closet, hanging there. I should hang them behind me as well.
It's
But
the best conversation starter.
that's true. That's true. Well, I'm gonna give you the stage. I will share some slides here as well, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes with some questions.
Great. Okay. So welcome everyone. I'm going to see how this slide showing works. So my session is on building your data skills in 60 minutes per week. And let's start with, oh, I need some help. How do I move these slides? Sorry, Kate.
Oh, I'll move the slides for you.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move them for you. Thanks.
Okay. Hit the next one. Thank you. Okay. Just waiting for that to pop up. And while that's coming up on the screen, I love questions and I love starting a presentation with some questions for the audience. So my first one to you is, how important are your technical skills for you? You know, thinking about the technical skills that you have, what do they mean for your job and, you know, for you being able to do your job well? And then the next question is, if you didn't have the technical analytical skills that you currently possess, what would you be doing instead? And final question, what difference would it make to have even stronger technical skills? Because that's what we're talking about in this session, right? It's about building your skills. So with those things in mind, let's focus on, okay, we have 60 minutes a week. That's all I want you to worry about. How can you dedicate an hour per week? Because I think an hour is doable. It's a few minutes every day, but ideally you bunch it up into a 60-minute block. And coming from Makeover Monday, that's the commitment we suggested to people. If nothing else, try and do 60 minutes a week. So what were some of those lessons learned from Makeover Monday? Well, it's a data visualization project that has now gone into hiatus, but the data sets are still available. And essentially, every week we produce a data set for the community to use, and we gave them a visualization as a starting point and asked them to create something better, hence Makeover Monday. And what we learned from this project and from this community that we created and grew over time was it's not just even building your skills, because every week you practice, you build a new visualization, you analyze, you create your data story, but also you do other things, you give each other feedback, you learn from each other, you get inspired, etc. And those lessons learned apply beyond data visualization, because it's what we saw is that when somebody started to work on these visualizations week in, week out, they would participate regularly. The skills they built, they didn't just apply to this weekly exercise, they applied them in their jobs, and that helped them grow their career and grow in their jobs, grow in their roles, teach others, maybe get new projects, maybe get a promotion over time. So it helped them really build their skills beyond this weekly exercise. And that's what I want to suggest, is to use the time that you dedicate each week, those 60 minutes, to do something. And you will soon see that what you learn in those 60 minutes a week, you can apply to many aspects of your life, whether that is public speaking, it's something at work, it's maybe asking better questions at home, in conversations with your family. Don't be surprised if this has a much bigger impact than you first expect. So how can you do that? Well, on the next slide, you'll see I'm suggesting you pick a topic each week. With Makeover Monday, that was quite simple, because we would give people a topic. We would tell them, here's your topic for the week, here's your visualization. So it could be about visualization, it could be a data engineering exercise or data science. I've kind of just picked those three as a high level for you to relate to. For data visualization, maybe you pick a data set and you create a visualization. There are so many collections of data sets out there that it's actually quite easy to pick something in theory, because then the difficult part is choosing. So the stuff is out there, but you have to make a choice every week. And that's why I think Makeover Monday is nice, where they have week numbers and you just select the one that is appropriate for that week. And maybe, if it's about data engineering and you're trying to do some exercises there, It's more about, okay, what could you do there? Maybe there are different vendors. So as Kate mentioned, I work for Snowflake, and there's obviously a bunch of vendors out there that maybe have challenges as well. One example is Ultrix. They have their, I think they're called weekly challenges, where there's a problem to solve. So it's not necessarily data to visualize, but it's a problem to solve with the tool, and that helps teach you some skills. And for data science, one idea I had was, well, maybe there are hackathons for a good cause of some sort, and that should be fairly easy to find. There are a bunch of projects out there where you can apply your skills and learn something in the process. And no one expects you to always get it right and always get it perfect, but you can actually make a difference while you're learning for yourself. Now, why do I say 60 minutes? I've kind of alluded to it earlier. I think an hour a week is something all of us can commit to. And for some, that might be on the weekend. And I don't want to suggest that you give up your work-life balance and do some work on the weekends. But if it is maybe you're at university and you're studying and the weekend is when you have time, that's fine. Or you are running your own business and you don't have the strict Monday to Friday 9 to 5, then maybe the weekend is fine as well. Hopefully you can do it as part of your job. That would be ideal. You work whatever role you're working in, and in that role you can block 60 minutes a week. For me, it's typically on a Friday because there are fewer meetings, there are fewer events and urgent matters. And that's when I can block some time to do research or to experiment, build a demo. For me, that is practice time as well. And then do it once a week, because once a week gives you a really nice cadence of, okay, every Friday I do this. So it makes it easier to build a habit if you do it once a week. Once a day is probably a bit overreaching. So then to make sure that what you're learning sticks, I want to encourage you to also share what you're learning. You can do that internally in your organization. Maybe you have Slack, maybe you have Teams or some sort of platform where you can post about what you've been doing. You might worry that no one's interested, but I guarantee you that somebody will be interested. And at some point you will find someone who says, oh my God, this is so helpful. It's taken me hours, days, weeks to figure this out, and you just solved my problem. So don't be reluctant to share, because the other thing that does for you, apart from helping other people and building your profile, is it forces you to figure out how you can teach what you learned to someone else. And that means you really need to understand it, because if you haven't understood what you just learned truly, then you can't express it in a way that someone else can easily pick it up. So how can you get started? Very simple process. You pick a day each week. I would make it consistent. Find one day where you're like, okay, maybe it's lunchtime, maybe it's in the afternoon or the morning, where you will always be able to do this, because again, the more regular and habitual you can make it, the better. And then during that time, remove distractions, and that includes these kind of things. I'm very bad about getting distracted by my phone. So if I have to do some really focused work, it goes into another room, or it goes into the drawer, it's set on silent, or do not disturb. And then you might need to prepare ahead of time. So maybe, for example, if you're looking for data sets, maybe once a month, you spend maybe 30 minutes, and you just pick the data sets for that month and say, okay, week 1, I'm going to do this. Week 2, I'm going to go do this, because you don't want to spend that 1 hour you have finding the things, and then you only have 5 minutes left to actually do the learning. So the preparation might have to be on top of it. And then don't aim for perfection. So what you're doing in those 60 minutes doesn't have to be finished. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be correct. It's about practicing. It's about, if you imagine it like a sport, it's not like every time you go to a training session, you're going to hit a personal best. You're working on certain things, on certain skills, techniques. Maybe you're lifting heavier weights, or you're trying a new running drill, something like that. So that's just the same approach. It's about incrementally improving your skills. And for that, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's about applying what you've got to a problem and seeing what you learn in that hour. So then it's just rinse and repeat. You literally do that again and again, but don't always go back to the same kind of data sets and the same kind of challenges, because you don't want to spend, 5 years in this way and then say, I've got 5 years experience of doing the same thing. you want to challenge yourself to make it a bit different. And maybe, for example, if I look at data visualization, maybe for 1 month, you focus on the formatting and layout of your dashboards or charts. And that's the learning curve. You pick a different data set and then you just focus on the formatting. And maybe the next month, it's more about, okay, I want to learn certain calculations. And that's what you're going to focus on. It doesn't have to be a huge difference every week, but over the course of several months and a year, you want to make sure you really cover more broadly the topic that you want to focus on. Okay, that brings me to the end. So please feel free to connect. I post on Twitter, I post on LinkedIn, and I do have a YouTube channel. So make sure to connect. I'd love to hear from you. I saw there's activity in the chat, but I haven't been able to look at the questions because I've been talking. But Kate, yeah, I guess it's time for you to come back and for us to chat.
I'm back. Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Thank you so much for this, Eva. So I've been following the hashtag Makeover Monday for as long as I can remember learning about data. That is actually how I learned everything I needed to know about data visualization, data storytelling. It was a great way for me to sort of, and for those who don't know what that is, Eva, maybe let's start with that. If anyone doesn't know what hashtag Makeover Monday is at this point, it's a great project. And Eva, I'll let you tell the audience about it.
Yeah, so there is a website, makeovermonday.co.uk. You'll find a bunch there, but essentially it's a weekly project until last year, where we provided data, we provided visualizations, and we encourage people to create a makeover, something better with the same data set, and then publish their work. They can use any tool. It doesn't matter. You can draw something by hand. The idea is use the given data set and create a good visualization. And any level of experience is fine. It's not about creating the most amazing visualization. It's about creating an effective visualization. For me, I always prefer something super simple, black and white, that actually informs me and gives me something interesting or insightful, compared to this massive project that somebody creates where they spend hours and hours, and in the end, it's too difficult for me to understand. So keep it simple. It's about regular exercise and really about people building their analysis and visualization skills.
Yes. And I think one of the challenges a lot of folks starting out in data visualization and data analytics is, where can I get some data to play with, right? They want some fairly clean, structured data that they can pop into Tableau, Power BI, or any other data viz tool, and they need a project. They need something to do. So I think the idea behind this is genius. And I used to go on Twitter and search for the hashtag Makeover Monday just to see what other people are building, and then pick something that I loved the most and actually try to not copy it, but sort of follow how this individual has structured their data visualization, and try to be creative as well in trying to replicate that. A great learning experience, and it always keeps you on your toes because the data was always so different and interesting. So love that. Finally, I get to tell you how much I love this. I've been doing this for years. So let's see. Let's go to some questions here. Michelle's asking, do you have a list of ideas for data sets and examples of topics to focus on each week? Something to start on.
So I would totally recommend go to the Makeover Monday website. Maybe we can, I can't comment, but maybe we can put that in the chat, makeovermonday.co.uk. And if you go to participate, there's data sets, and literally there's weeks and weeks of data, well, years of data sets.
Yes.
And you will kind of, from the title, you will see what the topic is. So it could be US election, it could be, housing, it could be something about sports, traffic, environment, anything really. We try to always have a really good variety. So there's Kaggle, there's data.world. Our data sets were hosted in data.world. So you can also go straight to there and find the Makeover Monday project. And it just makes it easy for you to connect with a bunch of different tools as well. So Makeover Monday is the one that I'm most familiar with, and it's not sorted by topic necessarily, but we did add hashtags or tags in data.world, so you should be able to also look for the topics in there.
Yes, and it does go back years. Weekly data, but goes back years, and you can glance at all the data, and just you don't have to, I think, start with this week's data set, right? You can go back and start with whatever data set you'd like, whatever speaks to you, whatever interests you. Now, in your presentation, I love how you laid it out in terms of how do we actually get started, blocking 60 minutes, picking a day, picking a time of day that works for us. But life happens. And I think we all have these great ambitions like, okay, I'll block 60 minutes every Monday at 12 p.m. because I know that that's when I'm available. And then something happens, your kid is sick, or you just have other big work projects come up. What do you do if you miss that day and it's sort of, you miss it the next day, and next thing you know, you're a week late and you sort of couldn't catch up that week? What's your recommendation of how does a person address that?
So I live through my calendar. So for work, I tend to block big chunks of time to work on things like presentations, which means I need to focus for, let's say, at least 60 minutes at a time. And stuff does slip because something, comes up very ad hoc. So what I do is I just find another slot in my calendar for that week, and it moves into that slot. But by blocking, so when any kind of request I get at work, and it's similar to, making time for this learning exercise, everything goes straight into my calendar, because it's one thing to have a to-do list, but if you don't have time allocated to it, you're not going to get to it. So for me, there is no to-do list. There's just a calendar with everything in it, so that when the appointment comes up, there's description in there with notes of what I'm meant to do, and I do that. So I found that works really well for me, because it forces me to just find another slot if it's moved, so that I don't drop the ball. And that could be something people can try, to just find the time. I also like to challenge myself to a little power hour. So if I know I really only have 60 minutes, I'll be like, okay, let's see how much I can do. And I make it a little competition with myself. And maybe you can even shorten it to 30 minutes and say, I don't have 60 minutes this week. It's got to be done in 30 minutes. And you drop your expectations a bit lower of what you'll achieve, but you just do something for 30 minutes. Maybe you build every chart you can imagine with the data you have available. I'm thinking kind of, go to, if you're using Tableau, just build anything you can with the data you have and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that. Another tip I heard, I forget who came up with this, but if you're working on a laptop and let's say your battery power is not that great, you unplug your laptop and you work until it dies. So you basically only have that time. You'll be very, very efficient. So unplugging your laptop and also using the standing desk, you're not going to stand there and scroll through social media for the most part. You're going to stand there when you're trying to get work done. So some extra tips there.
Yeah.
Another question here from Ravit. He loves your work and he's asking for some tips on community building. And also he wants you on his show. There we go. There's a plug for the Ravit show.
Community building. Okay, I'm going to plug something as well. I wrote a book about it. Let me get it to the camera.
Okay.
Empowered by Data. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it on other pages as well if you're not a huge fan of supporting Amazon, which is totally fine. I put everything I know into that, and it's a very practical guide. But essentially, I think, beyond, by the book, the tips I would have is you need to have an idea of where you're going. Like, what's your direction? What do you want to achieve? Is your community about data literacy? Is your community about creating a certain project or finishing a certain project? Is it about implementing a new technology? Like, figure out what is your purpose, then find your champions. The people who are like, yes, I want to be part of this. Pick those first, because they will help you drive this if they're enthusiastic enough to volunteer, and then make some time and space for them to actually do it. So they shouldn't have to do things on top of their normal work, because it's always going to then be a compromise of, do I do this or do I do that? So they have to have time to do it. And if I can add a fourth tip, it would be to create a short pilot project. For example, if you want to implement Maker Monday in your organization as an exercise for people to participate in, weekly exercise, do it for a month, see what happens, adjust, roll it out. I wouldn't try to perfect things. I would just do a short pilot, and then it evolves as you go, because you will learn along the way what people like and what they don't. So don't be too rigid in how you approach things.
Yes, I think flexibility is definitely key in achieving just about anything, being fluid with it and adapting as you go. Great tips. Eva, thank you so much for taking part in this DATAcated conference. Really a pleasure to meet you, to talk to you, to thank you for the Makeover Monday Challenge. That has helped me tremendously. We'll see you online, and feel free to jump into the LinkedIn chat if you want to share any links to the book or to the challenge. Feel free to do that as well.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much.